So say, Nathan, welcome to the show. We're getting into good content already in the pre-podcast here.
Getting
I'll
amped.
pre-record the intro here. But yeah, glad to have you on the show. You were saying there, I want you to run that back. You were saying in the beginning, I was charging $50 an hour, and you weren't charging enough for overhead. Like, can you just keep going along with that sentence right there, and then we'll backtrack and have you give an intro.
Yeah. So I was just basically saying, as a guy that had done remodeling for myself, we lived in remodeled essentially 3 houses when I started my remodeling business. I just was like, oh, it'd be great to make $50 an hour. If I get in a full 40 hours and I'm billing this and I got a helper. So I'm paying him $10 an hour, essentially 1099. I'll charge $15 an hour for him. So I'll be making $5 an hour on top of that guy, and wondering why, as a husband and father of 5 children, I was broke every month at the end of every month, and just really having this technical aptitude, because I'd grown up doing it with my father. We added on to our family home. I'd done 3 houses with my wife, on the weekends, but having to transition to how much does it actually cost to bring this product to a client, to do this service for them, and how much time it takes to sell the job to them, how much time you're spending doing the paperwork, because you're doing it all yourself at the beginning, and just really having no idea about that. And the pivotal moment for me was my plumber, who's still does all my plumbing for me, and was a mentor of mine, kind of became a mentor because I think he just saw the pain that I was in and was like, all right, I'm gonna help this guy out. I can't take it, And he just said, I need 2 guys to come over and do a repair. One of my guys stepped through the ceiling, or we cut a hole in the wrong spot or something. He's like, how much to get 2 guys to come out and do that? And I was like, $65 an hour. He's like, for 1 guy? And I'm like, no, for 2. And he's like, for 2 guys? He's like, what is your problem? He said, from here on out, I'm telling you this right now, from here on out, you're $97 an hour, and per guy. And he's like, don't worry about it. And so he basically said, right now, start charging that, and walked me through why. And I had been, 18 months of just, I mentioned in the pre-interview, I did the hardest things in the military. So I was used to just embracing the suck. I'm used to going all night long with a heavy rucksack. I'm used to no sleep, and then just bleeding and pain. And, the more it sucked, kind of the happier I got, in a sense. You got to get through, you got to get the water running down your crack on a rainy day. And then you're like, all right, we're in the suck now. Like, this is how it's going to go. So in a lot of ways, that's good. But in other ways, it's not, because you'll just keep suffering in the things that you need to actually learn and grow. You need to get better at these things. And so having kind of people outside of it to say that is not right, and to kind of, and I feel like I'm kind of the guy that needs that outside perspective to kind of pull me out of that rut that I'm in. And so he did that for me. Another coach of mine has said, it's actually okay to come out and win round 1, Nathan. You don't have to do the Rocky thing where you're just taking the beating over and over and over and over again. And the reality is, when you got wife and kids that depend on you, and you take that beating, they're taking it too. Either you're not able to show up for them and be who they need you to be. You're not able to, because I definitely, I've said this on other interviews before. I was gone 6 to 8 months a year for almost 14 years in the military, 12 combat deployments. And I got out to be around my family. Like, that was really the whole thing. I don't care what I do. I can be a barista and barely have any money, but I'm going to be present for my children's lives. And I can't have, they're growing up while I'm gone. I'm being a dad via Skype, and I'm not going to have that happen. So I got out, but then in a sense, I was the worst version of myself for them as a failing business owner, and failing in the sense that I am not making what I should be making money wise per effort of unit of effort expended. And so I was tired. I mentioned to you, we bought a 8,300 square foot historic mansion with 11 bathrooms. My last day, 3 days before getting out of the military, I paid 25% down. That mansion's currently listed for 1.6 million. I bought it for 434,000. Put 25% down my last couple of days on the military active duty. So I had 108,000 down payment. Then I found I had to pay 40 grand back to the Army because I didn't finish my enlistment bonus period. So I kind of got, I was planning, I had 80 to 100K in the bank when I got out of the military. I got this historic remodel. I'm going to take a year. I got basically a 6-figure salary almost in the bank. I'm going to treat this like my job. I'm going to restore this. I've done it. When almost half of that got cut away my last day on service, I was like, all right, well, it looks like I'm starting the business and figuring out how to provide. So we were living in a duplex that we had renovated ourselves. I was getting rent on the back. I moved into a mansion with 5 kids, no heat or AC for 18 months because I couldn't get any money from anybody because I'm unemployed with respect to the bank until I've done it for 2 years. So I was like, all right, let's move into the mansion. Let's start getting rent on both these other units because these are fixed up. And so I started doing stuff for clients during the week, and I'd come home and set up the tools and work on the mansion in all the spare time. So that was about a 3.5 year suck fest for me, professionally, personally. I was the terrible, painful thing about it is I was the worst dad because I was stressed out about how the projects were behind. I didn't realize how much work it was going to be to take all my tools down on a job, come back home, set them all back up, work for 2 or 3 hours on a bathroom, take them back down again. So I kind of was like, all right, babe, like I'm going to try to do 4 days a week or something and work on Fridays, or I just can't break the miter saw down and set the miter saw back up every day. And so, yeah, it's just really not a whole lot of time to pick my head up and reflect on why I was in the situation that I was in and what the actual moves that I needed to make. I know you're really passionate about the sales and the marketing side of things, which some contractors are really good at it. And a lot of contractors don't even have a website still, and are still working off a notebook. And like you've said before in some of your posts, that the young guy that does it is going to beat you. And so I did, thankfully was putting out stuff on Instagram kind of from the very beginning. I took all the projects that I did for myself and posted photos of them. They weren't professional. Started getting jobs professionally photographed, started putting some of the work up, the portfolio there. And then I also was committed to, even though I was losing money, even though I didn't have it in the budget, because I remember very vividly working with this one lady's bathroom, and I had to notch the end panel of the cabinets for something, for the plug or something, and I cut the wrong side of the cabinets. It was 2 individual vanities, and the sinks were placed a certain way, and I had them out and I cut basically the opposite side of both cabinets. And when I went to kind of carry them back in, I had cut the panel that you could see instead of the one that we were going to route that was against the wall. So I had to buy a sheet of plywood, go and get this color match because it's kind of a cheap vanity, and build a panel for these cabinets. And I was already losing money at the kind of the beginning, and I made that mistake, and I just cut the wrong thing. And I just remember thinking, like, she's doing exactly what I told her to do. I said, this is how much it's going to cost. And she is paying on time. And she is so sweet. And she was nice. And I was furious and mad at myself for making this mistake. And I'm already behind. But I don't get to cut any corners, And I actually called this client after the fact. There was one piece of tile I was setting. I did a custom shower for her. The top tile was a little bit out. And when you turn the light on, you could see a shadow of the tile a little bit because it was poking out a little bit more. And I actually called her a couple months later and was like, can I come and swap this one piece of tile for you? It's driving me nuts that I walked away from that job. She paid me and I was done, and I couldn't take that I left that one piece out. And I went back months later and busted it out because in my mind, there was just, that kept coming up in my mind. This is a way that I had executed the job poorly, and I had been in a hurry to get off the job. And so I say that to my guys. I'm like, I don't care if the client notices or not. If Bob Vila comes in here, or Tom Silva, this old house, because we do historic remodels, they come in here and they're having dinner with these clients, and they look over, and the client didn't notice, because the clients don't notice a lot of stuff. And they say, who did your kitchen? And they say, Transform. He's not going to tell his friends, like, whoa, they really butchered your cabinet install, didn't they? He's going to be polite, but he's going to, in his mind, going to say, Transform sucks, And so that was I would say, is the thing that I did well, is even though I was broke, even though I had 5 kids, I had a broken historic mansion, I was working around the clock, I was not going to compromise brand quality. And I didn't even really know how to do a audit on who my ideal client was. I didn't understand. I just was kind of taking everything, and you have to at the beginning in a lot of ways. That's how you get the reps in to learn. That's how you figure things out, and how you understand. You got to have some bad clients to know who your ideal ones. You got to have some ones to compare to. And so, but I just never really paused and was like, why? What about that client made them better to work for? What about, and when I really honestly didn't do that until about 12 to 18 months ago. I'm in year 7 of business, because you just get in it's a rat race, and the next job and cash flow. And I gotta actually sell a job faster if I want to not bust, go bust. And you start, you can get into just behind the power curve on things and just not be in a good position and stressed out, and then not being able to be a dad. And like we talked about at the beginning interview, I think that that would be maybe my superpower, or what I hope to offer the world, or hope to offer any of the business owner that's listening to this right now, is that you don't have to choose between, do I want to make money or do I want to be a good dad? Like I think really, as unpopular as a good dad makes a lot of money. A good dad provides for his children, and not in the sense that he's going to say, I'm not going to be around because I just got to put food on the table. I think that I'm going to come after both of you, whoever you are out there. If you're making a bunch of money and you're thinking it's okay because your kids have all the brands that they want and can do all the activities, and you can do a vacation, but you're on your phone the whole time because you don't want to be with them because you're trying to escape your family because you're good at work, but you don't feel like you're good at being a dad. And then the broke dad that just is okay with being broke because I'm a good dad, and I'm not that there, everybody's situation's different. I'm not trying to come at you guys, but I think that what I'm trying to prescribe and all of that I do on this branding while I'm on this call is I don't think you have to choose. I think that the person that is feeling like they have to choose riches or being a good dad doesn't know how to hire and manage people as they should, because you know the deal. If you get the right people, if you provide leadership, you don't have to do the 120-hour a week thing. You work less. You probably read Who Not How, I'm sure. Just understanding that you got to get the right people in your organization and you got to lead. And a lot of us still get trapped in that swapping dollars for hours, and you got to get out of that. And the way you get out of that is you get people that are spending their time to bring value to your clients, and you're trying to do it efficiently, and you do that by training people, and you do that by providing leadership and vision. And I'm not there yet. I'm still working. I'm still figuring it out. But I'm not. I can look back on the last 7 years and say I just hit 2023 would have been when I got the coveted government pension. And I look back on, so my son was 7 when I got out. And in 2023, he's 14. So double his life to get a pension. And that's just my oldest. And we actually have a photo of my youngest was born he's born in January. I got out in December. So he was not quite a year old when I got out of the military. So his entire life, most of my kids don't even really, it doesn't register that their dad was a spec ops guy that was gone all the time because they were just younger. The older two can remember saying goodbye and me coming back, but the younger ones can't even at all. And my son is actually I was at we do trail life, which is a Boy Scout. So that's not woke. We were doing knots or something like that. And he's like, yo, Dad, how you know that knot? I'm like, bro, you don't even know your dad's a badass because I've been out so long. And that's awesome to me. They didn't experience their dad being gone 8. And that was the reason I got out. But then I had this, remembered I was at so I guess there's 2 milestones. One milestone was I got to the point where I earned all 40 grand of that bonus that I paid back. So that was 2.5 years later. And I re-enlisted on June 6th. It's D-Day anniversary. So D-Day came up and I was thinking about, hey, it's the anniversary of D-Day. And I was like, this is the day that I would have earned all 40 grand that I wrote that check back the last day. And I thought I was broke. I mean, I was freaking, I'm pretty sure I had borrowed 10 grand from my dad so that I didn't miss a mortgage and stuff. I was like, I'm going to get you back. I'm going to pay you. And he was even like, don't worry about interest. I'm like, no, I'm going to pay you 10% interest because I need to know that I didn't take money off Pops to make it. And I'm going to pay you what you would charge other people to get hard money. But I gotta hustle out of this. But I like I said, I just no money, but I was thinking back the last 2.5 years that I've done, and I'm about to get I'm about to get above water. And I figured it out in that period of time. And that's also when we got the mansion on Airbnb. So right as the pandemic was happening, everybody was scared to be in hotels. I offered up a luxury mansion, historic mansion, and I think we did 60K from the end of July to the end of the year in rent, gross rents. And so that kind of started to tip our direction. We got a rental, month-to-month rental, moved back into one episode. That's one side of the duplex, just like moving the family around. And that education, that hard knocks MBA, I call it, I got it. And I got it when I was younger, like in a sense. I got out when I'm 40 now. So I got out, I was at 30s, early 30s, and I was hungry. Like I wasn't this old vet, crusty vet that's just like, I can't, my body's broken, whatever. I was ready to go. I had a young family and I got my MBA, and now I'm 40 and I'm just about to take the training wheels off, or I'm just about to go jet engine mode. And I've been in the trenches. And then the other milestone was the time when I got my government pension. And I have a post that I've done that I was getting my entire government pension. I was getting more than my DOD pension for one weekend on the Airbnb rental. And it took me 3.5 years. So I do that contrast, 3.5 years to get $4,000 a month, or $4,000 in one weekend, or 3.5 years, or 6 years, 7 years to get 2,800 a month. And just the reality of, because people will say that the government pension, it's never gonna go away. It's like secure. You get your health care. You get all, like, that's mostly why people do it, is to keep the healthcare side of things. But just that reality to be like, I started a construction business that at this point has done millions or of sales, that I've got an Airbnb now that is high margin rents. And I'm buying land now. I'm building my dream house, and I'm just now hitting that 20-year mark. And I built something that I can pass to my kids, because the government pension doesn't go to your kids. It's gone. You die, it's done. And so that's that longer vision of building something that outlasts you, and the legacy, and it's your children. And training them up to understand business, because that's the other side of it. Is like, okay, it took me 7 years to start to figure this out, 3.5 to 7, still figuring out, still fire hose, still trying to grow. My kids aren't going to have to go through it the same way. They're watching, first of all. My 7-year-old is talking about how he's working on building rockets right now, and he's talking about how he's going to put Elon Musk out of business. And I'm like, what? 7, 8-year-old is talking like, I'm going to build this and I'm going to put this guy out of business. And it's because there's a culture of our home that our kids are observing, and this is how it used to be. Before global corporations kind of things, the way life was done is mom, there the 68%, I think, or whatever it is, of households had businesses. The kids grew up watching mom and dad. Economics actually means home accounts. Like, the whole study of that is family going through and doing in commerce. And that's, I feel like, we don't think of business as an extension of the family anymore, because of the global superstructure kind of stuff that's in place. But really, that is an extension of me. It's an extension of my household, serving other households, serving other people. It's providing for my employees and their households. And so this pre-industrial revolution view of a household that is an economic powerhouse. And the other side of it is, if you're following any of my social media, I'm building my family house right now, and I'm framing it with my family. We were literally on the hilltop site. We've busted it. We've spent maybe more money than we should have to get the dream parcel of land. We're building the house. I don't even have all the money in the bank to finish it, but I'm going to get it framed and get a roof on it. And I'm going to wire it myself if I don't have enough money to pay the guy. And it's, in some ways, it's like, I'm thinking through, I'm like, this is kind of dumb. Like, a framing crew could just knock this out. But my wife and I talked about it, like, nope, we want our sons to touch this material and make these cuts and know how a house goes together. And the opportunity to work alongside them, and to to teach them skills, and then also say, okay, we're going to have you help the electrician. I mean, I paid a mason to lay the block, because basically it's one of those trades like, it's dumb to, I would take me 3 weeks to do this, and they knocked it out in 2 days, and it was way cheaper than I thought, like for the amount of work. But I had my sons hauling block for a little bit. It's like, I want you guys to know that this mason, when he can pinch a single block with one hand, and he just goes down the line and grabs the block one hand and slapping the mortar on, like, that dude is a beast. I want you to respect that man. And I want you to understand how it goes together. But then also, like, let's talk about it. This is why dad paid this guy. All these guys out here that took 2 days to do this, your dad can bill that for 1 day of his labor. Just me showing up and using my expertise and understanding that tension between your brain and brawn. And so we're working through that as a family. And I was on the hilltop, kind of fighting the stress of like, okay, these contracts got to go out to clients, and I got to follow up on this lead, and I got to do these things. It was like, nope, the purpose for all of what we're doing is so I can be right here, right now, with my 2 sons putting in floor joists, and so it's living in tension between being good at business, but not losing the fact that you're good at business so that you can be good at your house, that you can lead your family as well. And I mentioned, we don't want to we're in this, I think we're in this mess because we let the government raise our kids instead of us raising them. Now I homeschool my kids. I realize that not everybody is going to do that necessarily. And I understand that there's economic things going on, but who raises our kids and who teaches them and the minds of our children and where they go is the direction that society is going to go and culture is going to go. And so what I'm trying to do for my sons, I want them to see their dad and be like, my dad loves life. He loves our mom, and I want to grow up to be like him and not feel like they got to choose, like, well, dad's a poor dad and he never could afford anything for us. I would rather be poor and nail being a husband and father and give my kids a leg up. But I'm not seeing that I got to make that choice from where I sit. And so I'm trying to get better, but at the same time, I'm also thinking, okay, I made that mistake. My son doesn't have to. My daughter doesn't have to. I got to train them. They're going to start out. My goal is to have a family bank. I'm hoping to give them, 0% interest loans with equity partnerships and things, and launching things with my kids. And my son's 15. And so I'm not too far out from, I want him to buy a crack house, and him and his 14, 15-year-old brother to go over there and work on it themselves and start getting a real estate portfolio together and figure that out. Anyway, I just went for like 30 minutes probably nonstop, and you haven't even got a chance to like steer it whichever way you want to go. But there's the 30-minute verbose Nate Spearing intro.
I love it, man. We could go so many different ways with this. One thing I'm personally interested in right now, it seems like, and you mentioned this, it's like, where do we end up with the culture that is currently embedded in America right now? And I've thought a lot about that recently. Sounds like you grew up very similar to the way I did. I grew up, my dad's blue collar business owner, sort of took everything upon his shoulders to do exactly what you're doing. Hey, I can be good at business. I can build our homes that we live in, and can be a great dad. And he checked all the boxes of that. Like, he's no Elon Musk, right? But I don't think that was his goal. His goal was to be good at business to where he could have the flexibility to be a coach of all of our sports games. I don't think there was one team that he didn't Yeah. I
Yeah.
also don't think that he missed any of my games ever. Even practices, like he was there. And to me, like as a young man growing up, being able to learn alongside not only business, because I worked with him during the summers, but
Mhm.
in sports as well. I sort of took away this concept of hard work. And it's so funny because it's like I even see like all these entrepreneurship books, like just pushing so much of the, oh, I need to work on the business. But like you were working in the business early on, and everybody like tries to push that away. And I did that in my business. I think right now the biggest opportunity is for people to sort of accept the like who are willing to mentality. I'm willing to work in the business to start something that can be greater than just me in the future. Like I see that as such a big opportunity right now. But I think it comes back to this fundamental change in mindset that, millennials, Gen Z, like everybody has a different mindset of the world now. And it always has been that way. But I'm curious to hear your perspective of, you mentioned something about the government raising the children. Like, can you expand more on that? Why you mentioned that, and how you want to essentially eliminate that or combat that and do it the way that you want to do it?
Yeah, well, I'm actually never spent a single day in school. I was homeschooled all the way through, and so was my wife. And one of the key things that I think homeschooling does, and it was hilarious because my daughter is doing writing and speaking kind of class with her grandmother, who's actually offering that class to a couple other kids at church. So they go on Tuesday mornings and they got to write papers for her, and they got to speak in front of some of their peers, and they had to do some debate. And so she was basically saying, I'm going to do why homeschool is the best, you know, and she started she was trying to collect all her arguments and organize her thoughts, and she asked her 11-year-old brother, okay, why is homeschooling the best? Why do you think homeschooling is the best? And he's like, because I get to do my school whenever I want and get done early, you know. And so what homeschooling, in hindsight, what I think homeschooling did for me is it we have a saying in the military, done to time or done to standard. And so we always just say done to time, because there's a in the government, when you work for the government, you work in the military, it's like you have to be here until 16:30 formation. Like, I don't care if there's nothing to do. You got to be here, because if you leave early, you're going to go out and get drunk, and you're going to, get in trouble with the law. So we're going to keep all y'all here till 16:30, and you got to be back at 06 formation, and there's nothing you can do. And that's the way, in to a large extent, promotion works. How long have you been in? Every 2 years, you're going to get a pay raise. After you've been in time and grade for whatever, you're eligible to get a promotion, but you're never going to pass the guy that's been in 6 years. He's always going to make more money than you. Maybe at the, if he doesn't get sergeant major and you do, kind of thing, and he like towards the upper echelon, it kind of changes out. But the spread on that is, and in homeschooling, I could get up at 5 a.m. I remember doing this, getting up at 5 a.m. and doing all my math for the whole week and just gutting through it by it's 45-minute lesson kind of thing, and just crushing through, getting all 4 lessons done. And then saying to my mom, can you take me to Micah's house now? Like, I'm done for the week. I want to go play all day, and I'm seeing my kids do it too. And my wife's like, this is actually not good, because now I got an 11-year-old that got up at 5 and is done with everything. And now is the whole day he's free to mess with his sisters and to get into trouble or whatever. But they are they're able to look at what is they have to do. Here's the standard. You got to read these chapters and these books. You got to do this paper. You got to whatever. And they get to set up at a very early age, manage their time. We're going to work through this. They have the lesson plan and they're going through it and they're getting it done. And so if they are and they have to dictate stuff back, so they can't just breeze through it. There's these requirements. So if they can read faster, they can apply themselves, they're not distracted, they get it, then they can do what they want to do. And that's entrepreneurship. That's looking at what needs to be done and figuring out the way to do it the most efficiently so that you can do more work ultimately, or you can say, I've done all the work. That's been the hard thing for me, leaving the military, coming into business, is being like, actually, I hit all my critical tasks already. It's 10 a.m., or I performed at a really high level and I'm zapped mentally right now. I just did a 3-hour, sit down, blitz through, got a bunch of inquiries responded to, blah, 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 blah. It's okay to go home now. It's okay. I don't have to feel bad to go home at noon and hang out with my family. And where I am now, I guess my life is building at home too, and realizing that it's not just aimless play with the kids. Like I'm gonna leave work at noon, and then I'm gonna frame my house with my boys from noon until 7:30 p.m. And then we're going to eat dinner and I'm going to be exhausted and I'm going to sleep awesome. And I'm going to wake up at 5 excited, make my wife coffee, and we're going to do it again. And I don't need a vacation. I'm so excited about what I'm building, and work is hard, but the vision is there. And so I don't think you get that in the government school. The government, that largely right now, our society needs employees. It needs people to turn, the cogs, to build the widgets, so our society is organized that we need that. And it's not, I don't think it's organized that way because it needs to be that way. I think it's organized because we've centralized a lot of the services. The food is brought. I mean, the bundle of 2x4s that I got dropped from my house is from Germany. Like it's a German company. I don't know where they actually cut it. Maybe South Africa. I don't. We're bringing stuff at a commodities pricing kind of thing and global shipping, and it's starting to kind of centralize. But the way that I see it is, and the AI and all this kind of stuff is if your audience hasn't checked this book out, I would 100% like a book called Durable Trades by Rory Groves. And he was a computer scientist that lost his job his first day on the job after school was the dot-com bubble burst. And so he's like, I don't know if he's like, probably don't have a job. And his boss was like, I probably don't have a job. So he's kind of like coming into tech and kind of upheaval, and then kind of went through the process of leaving tech and starting a farm. And so he basically looked at the vocation market, and we have something like 40,000+ vocations. And basically back in 1900, we had 60, or 125 or something, like the specialization and the way the labor market breaks out. And the way that I see it is that we're going to, he's like the vast majority were what he calls a primary sector, which is taking stuff from the ground, farming, quarry, lumber mill kind of stuff, like harvesting and processing the stuff that is grown and is in the earth. And it's flipped now, and the biggest sector is research and education, And so as I see things, like college is very appropriate for about 8 to 10 vocations. Like you have to, you don't want a vascular surgeon that YouTubed it, you know. But they have oversold college to everybody, and people are waking up to that. They're the generation that you're talking about is pissed that they're in debt for a degree that's not making them the money they thought they were going to get made, and they can't buy a house, you know, and all these pain points that they are experiencing. But what they're missing is if you just went and started a blue collar business, you could afford a house, you know. And the stigma, there's a jobber like market review, like parents parents actually want their kids to go to these schools because the parents, it's like a status thing for the parents. You know, parents aren't excited to say that their son digs foundations. You know, they want to drop, my son went to Harvard, my son's a doctor, my son's a lawyer. There's this whole vanity hierarchy in place. And so, and that starts out with the government, because the reality is the government wants you to be a slave. We are the most enslaved in the history of the world right now as people. But the slavery is voluntary in a sense. The slavery is credit card debt. The slavery is college debt. They have finely optimized software tools to sell you stuff you don't need to impress people that you don't like, and we do it to ourselves, and we can't control our own appetites, and so you can't, and all the while they're manipulating currency and people, you know, it's like, hey, if you're okay with being a millionaire, but people not recognizing that you are, and being free with your time, you know, like how awesome is it to have people not know, or to be able to actually show that you have wealth, but then to say, yeah, I never went to college. Like I never did, you know, like I don't need to take that prescribed route, you know, get a job, get a good job, accept your 2 weeks vacation a year, and then, you know, die and repeat, you know, and that's not what I want for my kids. I'm happy for them to go to college, but if they want to go to college, we're going to talk about how they pay for it. And we're going to do an analysis of, if you take this loan, because maybe it is worthwhile. Like, yeah, I get to be, but this is how long it's going to be before you're making money. And this is what your salary is going to be. This is what it's going to actually be once you get taxed. This is how much it costs to live. So is this really a good investment? And I talked with the college president about this on my podcast. Like, it's the only loan that not being able to pay it back is a prerequisite. Like, everything else is, can you pay this back? Like, they do it like a wizard. You go into this college and you click through the wizard and you get your courses, and it's not even really showing you the money. It's not really showing you that breakdown of what it's going to cost to pay this back and all this stuff. For me, I think it's criminal, you know? And then the reason why college is so expensive is they're tying a lot of stuff to the title, is it Title IX or whatever, the sports and education. They're putting a lot of woke stuff on that. And if you don't comply Title IX, then you lose the ability as a college to get college loans, which 80% of people that have an undergraduate degree have college debt, you know? And so that's all because they want to enslave you with debt and get interest payments off of you. And so as I look at that, it's like, it's just homeschooling delays uh like realizing you're weird makes you realize you're weird a lot later in life. And so like I went to basic training at 19. I knew I was weird. I swam competitively in high school. I went to basic training. I thought I was weird, but I didn't realize how weird, until I was in the barracks in infantry training brigade on my way to Ranger Battalion, but I was 19. It's not like, oh shoot, I got to change now so that these guys think that I'm cool. Like I'm formed. Like this is who I am. Like sorry. Like and I'm a Christian. Deal with it. I'm a virgin. I don't care. I'm waiting for my wife. Like you can make fun of me all you want. And I joke. I've said this on X. I killed double digits before I had sex. Who didn't care? Like the enemy that I killed. Like they're not saying, oh, this guy's a virgin. It's like, yeah, you just got killed by a virgin. Like so what? Like it's all these paradigms by which we analyze stuff. And I'd way rather have one woman and 5 kids and love my life than be a player, like rich, free, great relationships. It's, I do it. That's the way. And the government's not teaching that. Like the government is, it's not profitable, because if the government taught that, then we wouldn't need as much government. We'd have people that ruled themselves, people that controlled their own appetites, people that were productive, industrious, and we would need less intervention from these outside forces. And so that's directly in conflict with the government, which is always trying to get bigger. And so, and I don't think that that's particularly tinfoil hat or any of that. Like it's just, it's all about money. It's not really that insidious. Like it is insidious the ways that it's being done and all that kind of stuff. But it's they're just trying to profit. Like and we don't have people that can control their appetites, that can control their financial appetites, that can control their flesh and and channel it towards building something, and so I think my passion beyond just this remodeling company is to prescribe that route for specifically, I think for me, is for young men, for that 15, 16-year-old boy that is kind of like, I'm not really too excited about doing 6 more years of this, 2 more years of high school, and then 4 years. What a freaking load of crock to say, oh, you don't even know what you're doing for the first 2 years of 50 grand a year education. Just give us 100 grand for 2 years. That doesn't even really matter what, like, that's ridiculous. Why would I pay that much money? I think that I want to prescribe a way to financial freedom and relational, like great relationships and success and all that doesn't make a young boy feel like a second-rate citizen because he didn't go to college, and because parents would rather have their kids get a bunch of debt so that they can brag about my son being in an Ivy League school. And it's just a mess. And so I don't really care what people think about, I'm a combat veteran, like I'm not, nobody, there's very few people that did the stuff in the military that I did. So my masculinity is secure. My wife, I love my wife and kids, so I'm good. My business is war, but that's okay. I'm built for it. I'm born for this. And that a lot of people are talking about that comfort. It's actually, persevering and pushing through discomfort that leads to happiness. And so you started it and you learned it in sports. You're applying it in business. And so I think, I love Andy Frisella. I like binged his podcast pretty early on, the MFCEO, that's now Real AF. But just he kind of had this thing where it's like it's really, really hard. And when you want to quit and don't, 5 people did. So every time you want to quit and you don't, other people are. And that was a really vivid word picture for me, because when I was trying to get into Ranger Battalion, they had a thing called Ranger Indoctrination Program, and they would just spend 8 hours smoking us, which is just physical activity. They'd make us run to touch the wood line. We'd be doing flutter kicks and push-ups, and they'd just crush us. And then they'd be like, hey, this can all be over with right now. All you got to do is raise your hand, you know, and the 82nd needs guys. You're going to still be in the Army. You're going to still be airborne. You're still whatever, like, but this will stop, and every time we were just kind of like, we'd actually be like, hey, dude, I think you probably should quit, like, because we knew if they could get 5-10 people to quit, then the pain would maybe stop or whatever, and guys would start quitting. And when you're one of the guys that's like, I'm in this and I'm not going to quit, and when you see a guy quit, it's kind of like, yep, I'm still here. I'm still doing this. There's that mental, I persevered, they're quitting, other people are quitting. And for like a dude, like that's rewarding to still be doing it, to still be succeeding, to still make it. You don't see that in business, I don't think, like the same way that you saw it in the military. But I started thinking about it that way. And I started thinking about, okay, I want to quit right now. This is freaking ridiculous. This client's being a pain, this, that, and the other, whatever. I'm built for this. Like, that's one of my mantras. I'm built for this. And I keep going, and it gets better. You learn, you grow. And then I also say, if it was easy, anyone would do it. So if you're trying to do things that are hard, the pain that you're feeling is because you're doing something that's harder. And you just need to make sure that that pain you're feeling also brings money, and so that's part of the learning curve, is not pain for pain's sake, is how do I sell? How do I get that pain that I'm taking upon myself, the financial return from that, and understanding how to do that. And that takes time. It just takes reps, and it takes people in your life to point out, like my plumber did. So yeah, that's why my kids aren't getting the government education, because they're not going to get any of that. I want them to be free. I want them to be thinking through things, and and that's why we have a farm too. Like, some of that is trying to become more it's a little homestead. We're trying to control our food a little bit. We're trying to kind of take more sovereignty in different areas, not just finances, but what we eat, and actually realizing that the food that we eat is very much part of whether we're sick or not, whether we have the mental capacity to work. And so health is big. And look at that. That's probably another thing that how they're enslaving us. Alcohol, pornography, like all these things that studies have been done, that that's fundamentally altering your brain. It is causing sickness. It is all these kinds of things, but people are profiting from it. And so like, that's, I don't know. I guess that's that kind of that comprehensive view at building a productive household, is kind of the way that I describe it. The productive in the sense that it's an economic powerhouse, but also it's building the next generation of workforce. It's creating thriving adults, taking it from birth to thriving adult. And I don't think that can be done by outside the house. Like, there's just something that has to happen at the home level between the parents. And, I was fortunate to have, my mom and dad are still married. I had, a 2-parent household. My mom stayed at home. My dad worked. That's hard to do nowadays when the things are this way. And I totally get it. But also, I'm the guy that moved into someplace without heat and AC for 18 months. Like you can do it. It's just going to have to be, you're going to have to realize that uh, the pain has to be endured to get through to the end state that you want. And I think it's way better. We live in a bus, right now, like 400 square feet. When you count all the cabinets and seats and bunks and stuff, I think it's about 120 square feet of floor space with 5 kids. And we did that. It's 2 years we've been in it. In 2 days, well, I've been in a bus 2 years as a family. And that's also been awesome in a sense. Like, thought that living in a mansion with one working bathroom and no heat or AC was hard. Now we're in a bus for almost 2 years. Like, but we're building our dream house on 54 acres. I have a business that is growing, and it's the end state, and having to have that conversation with my wife, like, we're so close, babe. Like, and we bought more land than we needed so that hopefully we can give our kids a spot to build a house. Give a leg up to them to where their lodging is, like that would be a win for me if I could give all 5 of my kids a house. They have no mortgage. They're 18, 19 years old, no mortgage, and everything that they make from business can go back into the business, and can be growing it. And there's not this, and that's a faulty mindset too that we have, like, that my kids need to make it. Like, my sons are learning how to work. Like, they're learning how to create value. They're not going to be lazy. And the fact that they don't get started out because of what I built. Like, I want that. That's a boomer thing. Like, the wealth is congregated at the higher echelon because the boomers made a ton of money and they're holding it, and they're not like, and their kids are, and grandkids are suffering through the pain, and they're thinking they're doing them a favor by making them sweat through it on their own. Like, I'm sure you have lessons that your dad taught you, that the reason why you're able to do it, what you're doing in business, is because of the leg up your dad gave you, at least in a mindset and education side of things, that other guys didn't get. So I want to do that for young boys and men. For white collar, I've been joking on X, like, hey, if you're a white collar guy and your job's about to go away from AI, like, let's do white collar to blue collar programs. Like, here's how you, and who throws money at me? White collar people who have no idea how to do anything on their house. I think average age of a home now is 59 years old in the US. Like, for a remodeling guy, that's a great stat. That's a great stat. I'm excited. Like, houses are older. They're breaking down. I'm a building science nerd. I know how to come in and fix all these systems for you. I got people. Unlimited earning potential from white collar people that are worried about their job. Like,
sure.
it's that's how this changes, is a blue collar revolution, because people are still going to need places to live. Stuff's still going to break down. And so if you can be okay with, hey, what do you do for a living? And being proud to say electrician, plumber, and that is ebbing back in our favor. That's people know how hard it is to get somebody to show up to do anything on their house. They know how expensive it is, because guess what? Inflation doesn't bother me. I change my hourly rate every job, because 6 months ago, that hourly rate was okay. The way that they're making money, it's not okay today. Not my fault. Like, not my fault gas prices are up. Not my fault that this and that. Like, I didn't do any of that. That's outside my control. If you want me to take all those 2x4s from that location over there and put them masterfully together over here, that's my rate. And good luck. Good luck finding somebody else that does it as good as I do it, And so it's you can write your ticket. and the average age of all these proprietors, high 50s. I've heard that an indication that an industry is in decline is if the average age is 35 of those owners. So HVAC, plumbing, electrical, general contracting, all these trades have high 50s, early 60s business owners, and they'd rather not sell to private equity. I think they'd rather sell to a young buck that's promising. They'd rather do a buyout deal with him over however many years. But a lot of them are in the position where they didn't really prepare for retirement. Their kids got college debt. They want to save their kids from the heartache. Their kids went and got debt, don't understand the value of blue collar. So they built something. They got customers. What are they going to do? So a young guy is ready to strap on the boots and the gloves and whatever, and like you said, do the work for a little bit. He can write his ticket, and he doesn't have to feel like a second class citizen.
That's exactly right. Well, you heard Nathan Spearing, best white collar to blue collar. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. A little over the hour mark here, so we're gonna wrap this one up. Nathan, we could take this episode a million different ways, and I think there are a million different topics that we could talk about. One thing that you and I have been talking about is home preparedness, and we're going to have to save that one for another episode here. So is there specifically, real quick before we wrap it up, where can people find you online?
So my website is Spearing, SPEARING.co. And I got all the social handles there. I'm the Spearing on X and Instagram, and so I'm doing most of my stuff on X right now. I don't know how much you've done on other platforms, but I'm 4 or 5 times the followers on X after doing it for 90 days when I've been doing Instagram for 3 years. So, and it's the same stuff I'm saying, and the algorithm's different. And if you're providing value, then you're getting rewarded. So as a businessman, if I can put it out anywhere, I'm putting it out on X right now. But I got a podcast that I paused because I'm trying to build my family home, but Life on Target podcast, I got 79 episodes up. It goes through all these different topics. I've in about a third of the ones are interviews, and then the rest are me talking about these different subjects of productive household and business, and kind of working through family and business. So Life on Target podcast, spearing.co, or the Spearing on X. And love to engage with people and help them get where they want to go.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for being on, and thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of the Owner Operator Podcast. And if you're listening on YouTube, would you mind to like and subscribe to the channel so you get notification whenever we publish new episodes? Also, if you have someone in mind who is building a blue-collar business specifically from startup phase, leave in the comments below, tag them. We'd love to host them on the podcast. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, once again, follow the podcast, and you'll get notified whenever we release new episodes. Right now, we're dropping 1 episode per week. I think we're at 25 published. We've got another 25 in the queue. And we always talk about generating 5-star reviews in service businesses. It's like building a service business. 5-star reviews are super important on podcasts as well. So if you don't mind to take 30 seconds, if you're enjoying this podcast, leave a star review. We would greatly appreciate that. Without further ado, we'll wrap this episode up. We'll see you guys in the next one. Don't forget, work hard, do your best, never settle for less, and see you next time.